In coffee service, when taking an order, it's important to first focus on preparation. By preparation, I mean asking yourselves a couple of questions. First of all, what time of day is it? The time of day is important, as different guests will drink different types of coffee at different times of the day. This isn't a general rule, but you can kind of assume that in the morning, guests would prefer something like a cappuccino, because it's milky, it's not as strong, doesn't have that strong coffee flavor, slightly sweet, and it's what guests generally feel like in the morning. That can be said all the way through until lunchtime, where guests prefer drinking longer cups of coffee. By longer, I mean more diluted with milk. Through to the evening, when guests would prefer espresso. Generally, after a meal, guests drink espresso just to give them that little bit of a lift and to help with the digestion process. The next question you should ask yourself, what is the occasion that these people are getting together and will drink a cup of coffee? Look at the dynamics of the group and ask whether these people are business people, whether they are having a social cup of coffee, whether two friends are meeting. This will then depict the speed of your order and how you recommend and how you interact with your guests. There are any number of different styles of coffee. And think of the amount of time you can save if you are preparing your mind for what you think those guests would order. For example, ladies generally prefer lighter styles of coffee, lattes, cappuccinos. Men often prefer stronger types of coffee, macchiatos, espressos. So prepare yourself accordingly. You can also then look at if guests are relaxed or if they are a little bit pushed for time. If they are pushed for time, your order is going to be quick and efficient, and you're going to make sure you bring the bill without asking. If guests seem to be relaxed, if they're friends meeting for a drink and a catch-up, you can be more relaxed with your order. I don't mean take much longer, but what I do mean is ask more questions, interact more, find out exactly what type of coffee they prefer. Remember, when preparing for taking an order in coffee service, you've got 2 or 3 minutes to make an assumption about those guests. Use your experience and use your knowledge to come up with the correct assumption. The next element in preparation is making sure that your coffee station, your front of house coffee station, is incredibly neat at all times. Remember that coffee stations are going to be messy. Guests will spill sugar. You may spill coffee. There will be little bits of paper from sugar packets if you have them at your establishment. Make sure that you have a huge amount of focus and attention on keeping your coffee station clean at all times. Having a clean and neat coffee station is the first step. The second step is also ensuring that it's a well-stocked coffee station. Making sure you have enough sugar, making sure you have enough milk, all the different types of milk that you have at your establishment. Making sure your biscotti or your biscuits or your fudge or your chocolate bonbons that you are serving with your coffees is stocked correctly. It will save you time, it'll make you more efficient, but most importantly, if a guest looks at your coffee station, they immediately assume, if it's clean, neat, and well stocked, that your coffee is going to be of a high quality. If they look at your coffee station and it's a mess and there's coffee stains and sugar all over the place, they immediately assume that your coffee is not going to be made correctly because you haven't taken the care and attention to detail to make it neat and professional. Once you are comfortable with your preparation, you've made sure that you've looked at your guests, you've assessed them, you assume what you can recommend to them and what they will want. You've made sure that your coffee station is prepped and ready and clean and neat. Now it's time to actually go and take an order from the guests. When you are ready to actually take the order, remember that your guests have probably just sat down, they're just getting into their conversation. Make sure that you don't interrupt at the wrong time. Guests will want to laugh and joke and tell a story. It's not a time where you can force the interaction, where you can talk for a long time. They've just sat down, they really want to talk to each other. Make sure that when you are taking the order, it's quick and efficient. If you are going to recommend, do it quickly. For example, ladies and gentlemen, may I recommend some cappuccinos for the table? Or, ladies and gents, may I offer you some coffees? We've got some wonderful lattes and beautiful macchiato, espresso, or perhaps a cappuccino. Saying this takes one step towards the guests and allows them to see exactly what you have at your establishment without having to bring them a menu, or them asking you, what do you have? Often, when taking an order, waiters fall back on the old question, what would you like to drink? Or, can I help you? Of course you can help them. That's what you're there for. Don't ask that question because it just wastes time. By asking a question like, can I help you? Your guests are going to say, yes. May I have a cappuccino? Generally, this is the most favored of coffees in the daytime. So when it is the daytime, and this comes back to your preparation, when it is during the day, if it's lunchtime, mid-morning, go straight to the cappuccino recommendation. Ladies and gents, may I recommend a cappuccino? If they don't want a cappuccino, they will tell you. They'll say, no thank you, I would prefer macchiato. It is better recommending a cappuccino, or any of the coffees for that matter, than asking the broad, unspecific question, can I help you? Or may I get you something to drink? So the questions we ask relate to the style of coffee first. Then we must ask whether they would prefer a single or double shot of espresso in that style of coffee. Then if necessary, if required, we ask about the milk. And what I mean by if necessary, a cappuccino obviously comes with milk. A latte obviously comes with milk. So does a macchiato. If they are drinking a black coffee or an Americano or an espresso even sometimes, we ask whether they would like hot or cold milk. And also, if your establishment serves full cream or whole milk, skim milk, low-fat milk, or soy milk, we ask the guest what type of milk they would prefer. Often we assume that coffee service and taking an order in coffee is much simpler than something like food service. It's not. It's, in actual fact, we should apply the exact same principles we do when serving a plate of food when serving coffee. The reason I say this is because we ask guests specific questions on the style of coffee that they would prefer. People are very particular about that style of coffee. And it's the same as if you serve somebody a well-done steak when they're asked for medium rare, when you serve somebody a macchiato when they're asked for an espresso. For this reason, we need to apply the same principles we do when serving a plate of food to serving a cup of coffee. Now, let's have a look at those principles very briefly. First of all, we need to take the lady's order first. We need to make sure that when they say what their order is, we control that dynamic at the table so that we move around to the ladies, especially in a big group, move around to the ladies outside the table, taking their order first, and then come around and take the gents' order. Often what happens is one person will take control of the table and say, 3 espressos and 4 cappuccinos. Try to ascertain who is having the espressos and who's having the cappuccinos. Because you will need to write this down in the position numbers so that when you serve the coffees later on, you get the correct style of coffee to the correct person. Position numbers are absolutely crucial. Remember, if you don't serve the coffee and you've taken the order, you need to hand over that information correctly to the person who will be serving the coffees at the table. Having somebody stand at the table and announce cappuccino and guests having to put their hands up and shout for their specific option or style is not an option, and it shows unorganized and unprofessional service. Make sure that when you are taking orders and serving coffee, you are applying the same principles, procedures, and standards as you do when you are serving a plate of food.
Let's have a look at taking an order. It is very useful to ask yourself specific questions in order to better serve your guests. Ask yourself questions about the time of day, about the occasion, and the behavior of your guests, and this will help you to make better recommendations and to better tailor your service for every single individual guest. In order to meet the requests of our guests and to serve more efficiently, we always need to start with a perfectly spotless station and a station that is well stocked in order to meet all of our guests' requirements. proper preparation prevents poor performance. Those are the 5 P's of great service. Remember to also feel confident in making recommendations. You know a lot about coffee now, and you have fantastic insight about your product knowledge. So when you are taking an order, be sure to ask your guests questions that will help to guide them towards a better recommendation. For instance, what style of coffee do you like? Would you like a single or double espresso with that style? What kind and temperature of milk would you like? For instance, would you like low-fat milk? Would you like hot milk or cold milk? All of these questions will help us to really tailor to each individual guest, which is a real sign of true professional service. Another absolute golden rule of service is to make sure that you take ladies' orders first. And if another colleague is taking the order for you, ensure that you know who is having what and where they are seated, so that you can prepare your tray back of house in the perfect order, so that you can deliver first to the lady guests and then to the other guests, and always deliver exactly what they ordered without having to go back to the table not knowing who gets what. This is done the right way by being given or by giving a proper handover to your colleagues with accurate information in the case of you taking the order. This way, you and your colleagues can be accurate and provide a really professional service. Good luck at taking the order and delivering fantastic service to your guests, and also taking the order and giving great handovers to anyone that is helping you to deliver that service.